Okay, this is CIT 225, Computer Forensics and Investigations, Guide to Computer Forensics and Penetrations. Actually, we will be covering network security and penetration testing in this course. Again, a disclaimer, whatever we are studying in this course is entirely for academic purposes. If you'll use it for any illegal activities, you're solely responsible for your own activities. Now, we are covering this book called Guide to Computer Forensics and Investigations, 5th edition, chapter number 1, Understanding the Digital Forensics Profession and Investigations. So we'll try to understand that what is it actually, and how do we do it. Basically, it's just the introduction about what tools and what things a computer IT specialist must have in order to investigate and to come up with the evidence that actually something happened and it took place in a specific time frame. Now, objective of this chapter is to describe the field of digital forensics. It's just like the normal forensics, which is there in criminology, where you look for the clues or hints helping you to reach a final conclusion that if a theft takes place somewhere, you'll have to collect all the evidence in order to prove it in front of the court that actually this is the person who was involved in these kind of activities. Since we are doing or we are dealing in a digital world where everything is online, there is a high demand of understanding digital forensics, that we being the IT experts, how can we deal with these kind of things. Explain how to prepare a computer investigation and summarize differences between the public sector and private sector investigations. There is a slight difference between both of them. And describe how to prepare a digital forensics investigation by taking a systematic approach. There are some steps that you need to follow with the help of which we can reach a conclusion, and describe the procedures for private sector and for the public sector, and explain the requirements of a data recovery workstation and the software, and summarize how to conduct the investigation, including the critiquing a case and investigations. Now, a little bit overview, like when it started, the application of the computer science and investigation procedures for legal purpose and things. They started working on it in October 2012, where they had some standards for forensics and stuff, and information technology and techniques which should be used in order to investigate these kind of things. Now, whenever we are talking about digital forensics and investigations, the first thing or the starting thing which comes to your mind is the machine which was used to launch that kind of attack, or which was used to penetrate in the network, or a computer or a laptop or a desktop PC, mobile phone, tablet, anything, any device which could be connected to the network can be of a potential threat in penetrating any kind of services which are there. So in all kind of the devices that we have which we are connecting to the network, there is always a storage associated with that. Okay, now once there is a storage associated with that, we know that whatever he'll be doing, or what actions they'll take, or whatever tools they'll be using, it requires them to be copied to the computer, or to be executed remotely, or to be executed locally. So even if the penetrator would use a machine within your network and would delete the files, you can still recover them. There are ways through which we are able to recover the hard drives. Even if you are completely formatting it, there are tools with the help of which we can recover even the deleted partitions, complete data even which you have deleted it long time ago on the hard disks. Same procedure is there for the mobile phones, for the external hard disk, internal hard disk, tablets, any kind of medium which is connected to the network. So as long as you have the evidence, the machine which was used for to launch that kind of an attack, you can always investigate that machine. There are certain rules and regulations and procedures when we start digging in that what actually happened. We first of all secure the actual machine or the access point by creating the image of it, by creating a backup of it and isolating it to the from the network so that we can comfortably investigate it. Now why do we isolate it from the network is we want to make sure that if the hacker successfully managed to place some malicious code on the computer which is constantly executing and trying to hunt in other computers, it should stop it over there. So we completely isolate it from the network, but still in VMware environment, in the virtualized environment, we still have access to that machine. We'll be able to access it, but that machine won't be able to go over to the network and to replicate or copy or to execute any kind of things which or the files which were copied on that computer. Now investigating the digital devices include collecting the data securely, whatever was there, whatever evidence you found on the devices, examining the suspect data to determine the such as origin and content. Now origin is from where it started and how they penetrated inside the network. Always this happens is that whenever someone is trying to gain access to your organization, they'll try to target from different directions with different IP addresses behind VPNs, behind lots of protections and stuff. So it's really difficult to know that actually where they are coming from. Now, we can investigate that where they were coming from actually, but that's outside the scope of this course. We'll just focus on, as they are saying, the origin and content of it. So they target one organization from different angles, and from wherever they'll penetrate inside the organization, they'll use that PC in your organization to launch further attacks. Now, we all know that the danger for an organization or the security, the computers within the organizations have lots of privileges. Maybe they'll have access to the storage server which you don't have from outside. Maybe from within the organization you have the access to the payroll and HR which we don't have the access from the outside. So the inside computers are very well integrated with the entire infrastructure where they have resources access, where they have lots of other things which outside computers cannot. If someone is trying to come directly from outside, your firewall would stop it. But if somehow they'll dodge the firewall and they'll find a weakness within a computer and would penetrate inside the organization, now they'll use this computer to launch any kind of attacks. Now that's why we keep on telling the employees in an organization to maintain a good habit of changing your passwords on monthly or bi-monthly basis, so that if somehow someone have access to the username and passwords, you can always change it so that at least they'll not have access to those machines again. In some organizations, they keep on checking audit checks, network traffic check, the data is being generated on the networks, what kind of traffic is coming in, where it's going, what are the IP addresses, what your computer is trying to communicate, and all those things. That helps us in actually finding out that what sort of applications are installed on your computers and where they are pointing to actually. If you want to check on your computers, we are very much relying on the firewall which is coming with Windows. If you want to check that how many applications which are installed on your computer are trying to access the different websites globally, install a free firewall and change its settings to interactive mode rather than automatic. you will see there will be lots of applications which would be trying to communicate to the outside world, but since you did not have a firewall, all these applications were directly communicating to those servers without your consent. So we have a firewall, or we must have a firewall on our computers itself, which helps us in understanding that which are the applications which are constantly trying to communicate with the servers. By another study, we found out that the people, if they had the access to install applications on their computers, most of the applications which they installed, which were pirated or they were not licensed and other things, they were cracked, having some malicious code inside which was constantly copying your data and important relevant organizational details, and they were silently being sent out through the internet by using those applications. It would work perfectly fine. You won't face a difference. You won't even feel it that it's not legitimate, but still it will keep on copying the files from your computer to somewhere on the internet. Now, I have seen people with experience that they are even installing pirated version of an antivirus solution on the computer. That's the worst thing that you can do on your machine, because the copy from wherever you got it, whether it was a cracked copy or you are using a serial or whatever, has been already compromised. How can you rely on that application to protect you and your data on your machines? Once you have that kind of a thing installed in your network, whether it's an organization or at home, it would use that machine to penetrate on other computers on the network. That's why you might have seen that in organizations, they don't give admin rights to the users to install whatever they want to install on those computers. Okay? Now, presenting the digital information to the courts, we must have the evidence with the proof that that's how it happened. It entered through my organization using this path. They bypassed the securities, and that's how they ended up in the area where they were not supposed to be, and that's the financial losses that they have incurred, or they have damaged the organizational reputation or the overall trust in the market, and they must be charged for that. Applying laws to the digital devices practices, whatever. Now, applying laws to the digital device practices means that we must have proper policies which must stop the users from doing certain things. Policies plays an important role whenever we are talking about digital forensics and investigations. We have two kind of employees, for example, or let's talk about an educational institution. We have students, we have faculty, we have staff. Students must have limited access to the resources which are related to the students only. Now, there are policies on the servers which won't let students do certain things which a faculty and staff is allowed to do. For example, students have a separate storage or a filer on which they are storing their stuff. Now, those students must not have access to the storage of faculty and staff because they are behind a certain policy. There are certain websites which are open for the faculty and staff, but they are blocked for the students, because faculty are spending a lot of time for preparing their lectures and all those things. They might need those services, but they are not required for the students. Just like once a student came to me and he was asking the teacher why Instagram is blocked in the university. And there is no right answer for that. It's not required for academic purposes. We cannot open it for the students to waste their time. As long as they are related to your academic work, all those services will be provided to the students. Now, digital forensics is a different from data recovery. There is a huge difference between a data forensics and data recovery. Data recovery is just one thing out of digital forensics. There are lots of things. First of all, the machine, which we call digital forensics, like we'll find out that what files were changed, how the data was copied, now from where it entered, and even the risk management team, which assesses and finds out the overall pattern in an organization, that what are the weaknesses, what they must overcome in order to protect your organization from any kind of external threats. That's what we are talking about. Forensics investigators often work as part of the teams known as the investigation triad. Now, there are three major parts in it: digital investigations, then we have the network intrusion and detection and incident response, then we have the threat assessment and risk management. The final decision is always from the digital investigations. He will collect the details from the threat assessment as well as network intrusion detection, and then compile the report to come up with the decision that actually we must take this person to the court who penetrated in an organization, or it was some other weakness of the network. Now, digital investigators would be comprising of the experts in the field of information security. You can call that they are the best brains as far as the IT is concerned in your organization, fully equipped with the tools, knowledge, and the trends, whatever is going and happening and taking place in the world globally. They must have all the relevant information about any network threats, outbreak of any latest viruses, penetrations, or the worm or the malwares, or any kind of practices which are being adopted nowadays. Not only that, they must be good in different operating systems: Windows, Linux, Mac, even the DOS, where they must know that how the files are being copied, how the guys are trying to penetrate on the network, because most of the attacks are coming using Linux based machines. So they must have a clear understanding of the language and the tools which are there. Most of the tools which are used are quite complex these days. So by looking at it, sometimes you cannot judge that whether this piece of code is doing some harm to the computer or not, because I have seen it's a code of one line, but if you will decipher it, you'll come up with pages of code behind that one line which was executed on the servers. Okay. Now, we have digital investigations. These are the guys who have full knowledge about all the other aspects of the network, security, penetrations, data flow, and all those things. So if something is detected by the digital forensic investigators, they'll immediately alert the network intrusion detection or the incident response team, which is the networking team, to look for the specific pattern or the IP addresses which penetrated or which tried to penetrate in the network. Now, once that's done, the network team would find out that, okay, if a guy entered in the organization from this machine, which other machines they have accessed. For example, if a guy accessed one machine in an organization, they look for the log of that machine for all the traffic which was coming into that machine and going out from that machine, knowing the pattern that actually where is the information going and who's sitting behind the firewalls and trying to control these machines. You cut those threads. You try to investigate and you check you make a heat map of all that intrusion detection, and then you'll involve the threat assessment and risk management, that if someone tried to access this machine and went to these servers, where these servers are linked to and how much damage can we expect from any kind of penetration which took place. Now, if someone tried to access one machine to access the payroll or financial system or the student registration system, the impact is different on all of those. One is they might try to disrupt the services. Second is they might change the data, which is the worst thing that you can do. If you'll change the data, it takes a lot of time to verify each and everything that your all records are 100% correct. Think of the student grades, think of the financial data, think of credit card details. One dot behind and in front of a zero makes a huge difference. 1 million will be changed to 1 real just by one dot. So they sometimes enter the network or enter the servers and then they try to change the data. So in order to protect those things, we have multiple backups. We have replications of it taking place where we are creating and maintaining the backup on daily basis, hourly basis, weekly basis, and monthly basis. So if anything like that happens, you have a place from where you can restore the data and make sure each and everything is running smoothly. Now, once that's done, we will keep on updating the security patterns. We'll keep on updating the digital investigators. They must keep themselves updated by seminars, by short courses, by updates, by certifications, so that they know how to assess and how to control the damage. Now, someone penetrated in your organization. Next step is how to make sure that your business is not affected by that. You'll block it, you'll remove it, you'll stop it, you'll try to recover the data, or you'll try to power up the backups that you have. You'll try to come up with the best solution possible at that time. If you are into sales, if you are buying and selling anything, imagine if the server or the financial details of the credit cards and stuff of eBay and Amazon are being compromised. Their time is money. Every second they'll be losing money. And for the time being, when the services are down, people are not able to buy, people are not able to sell, they are not making any money, it would be an exponential loss to that organization unless and until these kind of things are being checked thoroughly and the services are being restored. That's why they say that always be careful and always keep your eyes open that what's going on in your organization. Can we stop it from happening 100%? No, it's not possible. You cannot stop all these stealings which are going on in the general world, robberies, banks looting, and all those things. You cannot isolate it or you cannot totally avoid it 100%, but you can take the measures to minimize it. Same goes for the network security. Same goes for the penetrations on the network. Every other day there is a new virus, there is a new worm, there is a new problem, there is a new penetration technique, there are new weaknesses found in the operating systems, and then there will be hackers sitting and waiting, and they'll be looking for those kind of systems which don't have the latest patches being applied to exploit the services hosted on those machines. So that's why we make sure, as the information security specialist and the computer forensics and investigations, to make sure that each and everything, the practices being adopted in your organization are up to the mark and they are making sure that it's not harming the overall long-term goals of an organization. Now, vulnerability, threat assessment, and risk management tests and verifies the integrity of standalone workstations on the network. If all the computers are equipped with antivirus, making sure that all the computers, even if they have antivirus solution, if they are updated on regular basis or not. Because if an antivirus is there and it's not updated, it might not have the latest updates and patches or the cure against the latest viruses which are being out there in the market. So if it does not have the protection against the kind of new worm, if it appears, if it comes in your organization, it might affect the computer and the network overall. Now, how can it affect your computer? You have firewall, you have an antivirus installed on your computer. We discussed about bring your own device concept nowadays. Everyone is coming up in an organization, like if you are going to work, you are carrying a mobile phone, maybe you might have your own personal laptop or a tablet, which is not equipped with the latest updated patches applied on those devices, neither would it have the latest antivirus on those machines. And if all of those devices, USBs or gadgets are affected with the viruses, which you are carrying it from home, and you'll connect that device or USB to the corporate network where the antivirus wasn't updated in the office PC, that particular worm would replicate in the computers. Now, for that we have firewall which would stop it from going out, but as soon as the antivirus updates are updated on the computers, it would clean it from the computer or would put it into the quarantine. Network intrusion detection and incident response detects the intruder attacks by using automated tools and monitoring the network firewall logs. So we keep on monitoring the logs of the firewalls as well. We keep an eye, a very close eye, on the traffic which is being generated on the network. What's the pattern? Firewalls are updated by the companies from where we are getting them. They have the latest patches as well. They have the latest updates as well. They have the latest upgrades for their operating system. They have the latest upgrades for the latest trends out there in the market. So that's your first line of defense. Between militarized zone and demilitarized zone sits in the middle is your firewall, which protects your organization from any kind of malicious or dangerous attacks which the hacker would try to launch from outside to the inside network. Now, digital investigations manages the investigations and conducts the forensics analysis and the systems which are suspected for containing these kind of viruses and stuff. To supplement your knowledge, develop and maintain contact with the computing network and investigation professionals. So if you are a part of investigation or a part of a digital security team in your organization, make sure that you are very well in contact with the people who are in the same field in other organizations. So you can exchange the ideas, you can exchange the techniques, you can exchange the latest trends which would keep you updated about whatever is going on in the outside world. Join the computer and the user groups both in public and private sectors, like the Computer Technology Investigators Network that meets and discusses the problems on daily basis. Okay. Now comes the preparing the digital investigation. In digital investigation fall into two categories. As I told you, it's a public investigation, public sector investigation, and a private sector investigation. Public sector investigation involves government agencies responsible for criminal investigations and prosecutions. Private investigation or the private sector investigation focuses more on the policies which should have been enforced so that we would have avoided the problem that we are facing now. So there are two parts of it. Eventually, both are criminal activities if someone is trying to harm or trying to penetrate the network, whether they did it or not. But if they try to penetrate in an organization with an intention or without having the intention to harm, both are subject to appear in front of the court to justify that why they were trying to do those things. We have in the university, in the financial institutions, big companies, huge departments of information security which are heavily involved in checking these kind of things, that what's going on in an organization. Understanding law enforcement agencies and investigations. When conducting a public sector investigation, you must understand the laws, whatever is there in that country, and it differs from one country to another, but the basic guidelines are the same. Standard legal process, guidelines to search and seize, and how to build a criminal case against a person who is doing it. So I'll stop it here today. We'll continue rest of the things in our next lecture. Thank you very much.